Let's do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X __ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app, or of course 1430 AM if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. Big show today, a lot of Colts, a little bit of stuff, a little bit more stuff on the Indiana Hoosiers, mainly Fernando Mendoza, his Heisman hopes. Zach Hicks is going to join the show in an hour, as he always does on Tuesdays, and just some other general NFL stuff. Like I said, big show today, and we have to start with the Colts. And we have to start, I think, with Shane Steichen, guy who's come under quite a bit of scrutiny despite not having a very good quarterback the last 2 years here in Indy. And now that he finally has one in Daniel Jones, who is playing by far the best football of his career, third in the NFL in passing yards and, 6 total touchdowns between passing and rushing touchdowns. And the Colts have only punted once, right? The only other team to punt less than 5 times through their first 3 NFL games in a season was the 2007 New England Patriots, who obviously played in the Super Bowl and lost to the New York Giants and Eli Manning. I want to hit on this really quickly. I was watching the Manning cast last night, which I normally don't do when I watch Monday Night Football. But I did it last night because I wanted to see Daniel Jones on the Manning cast, because he obviously knows the Manning brothers really well. The guy he played for at Duke coached both of the Manning brothers. He obviously played in New York, knew Eli when he was there. Now he's here in Indianapolis. He talked a little bit about how Peyton Manning had given him some advice about the organization and some of the different guys that are still here in Indy working that were here when Peyton Manning was here. And that was all fine and interesting. But Daniel Jones has no personality. Every time he's in front of a camera, I feel like he's just awkward. When he answers a question, it takes him a minute to kind of process it and then answer, and he talks kind of slow. And I don't know. I just, his personality, I'm just very intrigued by. Okay, he doesn't seem like, and this is obviously not correct, he just doesn't seem like the kind of guy that other dudes would rally behind. And maybe he just doesn't like being on camera. He doesn't like doing the media thing. But I will say that seeing him be awkward with the media and on camera, I think further reinforces the idea that he works really hard. Because the guys that are awkward, I think, are hard to support and get behind unless they work incredibly hard. And everything that we've heard about Daniel Jones since he came here to Indianapolis is that the guy's a film junkie and he only thinks about football. And he and Shane Steichen text about their upcoming opponent all the time. And he's just a relentless worker. And I do think his kind of awkwardness in front of the camera and with the media confirms that. Now, he's obviously working really well with Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen, I've been on this, is a good football coach. You can have the best weapons in the world. You can have a great offensive line. You can have an excellent quarterback. You can have a great defense. You can have amazing personnel in the NFL. It is not like college football, though, where you could hire me at Ohio State and we could go like 10-2 every single year because Ohio State simply has a ton of money and they can go out and they can buy better players than everybody else. And we're going to win 10 games every year simply because we have better players than everybody else. The NFL does not work that way. If you hired me to be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that has a really good quarterback and probably the best roster top to bottom in the NFL, if you hired me to coach the Eagles, they would go 0-17. Because even though there are definitely teams in the NFL that are more talented than others, the gap, the margin, significantly smaller. A bad coach in the NFL can ruin a good roster. Matt Eberflus ruined the Chicago Bears last year. I know that the Bears are 1-2, but they opened the season with a good Vikings team, and then they had to play the Lions, who are now 2-1 after beating the Ravens last night on Monday Night Football. Seems like Ben Johnson is going to get them going in the proper direction. The Los Angeles Chargers, the best team in the AFC, were terrible under Brandon Staley. Disorganized. It didn't matter that they had Justin Herbert. Didn't matter that they had a good offensive line. Didn't matter that the Chargers went out and spent a bunch of money to bring in these really good defensive players. None of it mattered because Brandon Staley was a terrible head coach. All of a sudden, John Harbaugh shows up, and with similar personnel, some of it's obviously different, but with similar personnel, John Harbaugh shows up and turns it around immediately. Okay, coaching in the NFL matters more than almost any other sport in, the professional sports landscape in America. Shane Steichen is a good coach. Not a great one because he's got some issues. The end of game clock management against the Broncos in week 2 was bad. He caught a break that the Broncos committed such an egregious penalty on that first Spencer Schrader field goal attempt to win the game. Okay, that was bad. The poorly timed trick plays last year were some of the most, what the bleep are we doing moments I've ever had in my life. And there's a part of me that wonders if the reason why Shane Steichen was calling those trick plays in those big spots was simply because he didn't trust Anthony Richardson to execute the way that he needed to. So instead of letting Anthony Richardson throw the football, they were going to have Adonai Mitchell do it instead. So that's just been a thought kind of rummaging around in my brain. With that being said, Justin Herbert, the best year of his career, or one of the best years of his career, definitely the best year of his career under Anthony Lynn or Brandon Staley, came under Shane Steichen when he was there. Jalen Hurts emerged under Shane Steichen when he was the offensive coordinator in Philadelphia. The year after he left the Eagles, the Eagles offense fell off a cliff. I don't remember who they hired after Shane Steichen, but he was there for 1 year. They fired him, and they brought in Kellen Moore. Shane Steichen can coach when he has a real quarterback who can just run the offense. That's the reality of it. Okay? Gardner Minshew, a career backup, couldn't beat out Aiden O'Connell in Las Vegas last year. Yeah, he when he was here, the Colts fought and hovered around 500 with a backup level quarterback. Last year, Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco would be a backup on 30 of the 32 teams in the NFL. The two teams that he would start for are the Saints and the Browns, and he just so happens to play for the Browns. It's the reality of it. And somehow, some way, between him and Anthony Richardson, who's obviously a backup quarterback, Shane Steichen found a way to be 500 through his first 2 years here in Indianapolis. It's impressive. Oh, once again, love this stat. He also did that with Gus Bradley as his defensive coordinator. Never had a higher ranked defense in his first 2 years than 28th in the NFL. And now he's got a guy in Daniel Jones whose career has completely and totally been resurrected since getting here. And look, it's only 3 games. There's 14 games to go. Things could go sideways in a hurry. Okay, it could happen. I don't think that it will because of how good the Colts have looked through these first 3 weeks. Will it continue to look this good? Probably not. Daniel Jones is going to make a bad decision at some point, right? I mean, certainly something like that is going to happen, you know? But I mean, but then again, maybe it won't. Maybe Daniel Jones is just never going to throw another interception in his life. It's really impressive what Shane Steichen has done with Daniel Jones through these first 3 games, the 2 bad teams they've played. It was just utter domination from start to finish. And then the one good team they played, the Denver Broncos, I know they're 1-2, but they've lost to the Chargers and the Colts, 2 legitimately good teams. And both teams needed a game-winning field goal to beat them. Against that team, they didn't punt. It's the reality of the Shane Steichen offense. And he's just done such an impressive job getting everyone involved on this Colts offense. You know, he is ensuring that Jonathan Taylor gets the number of touches that he needs. When there's a blowout, he's taking Jonathan Taylor out as he should. You know, Jonathan Taylor has no business playing in that Titans game when they're up 41-20. He's got no business playing in that Dolphins game when they're up by 3 possessions. It's just smart. And it's like, yeah, well, that's like an obvious thing. Common sense, for some reason, doesn't seem to be a normal thing amongst all NFL coaches. Okay, he's done a good job of getting Michael Pittman Jr. involved. He is obviously the Colts' best wide receiver. He clearly. But they're not overwhelming him with targets. They're spreading the football around. And part of that is not only Shane Steichen. The other part of it is Daniel Jones working through the reads and the progressions, because I'm sure that they've called plays designed for Michael Pittman Jr. where he hasn't been open. Okay, so part of that's Daniel Jones, but the other part of that is Shane Steichen, who I'm sure calls specific plays to get specific players involved, right? We saw it, game 1 against the Dolphins. First drive, very obvious that they were trying to establish Tyler Warren. Sunday against the Titans, it felt like they were trying to establish Alec Pierce. When they, dial it up and they throw it deep to Alec Pierce, like that's on purpose. In the red zone, when they target Michael Pittman Jr., that feels like it's on purpose. Okay, and so that is also a Shane Steichen thing. He's also not asking Daniel Jones to do anything that he can't do. He's leaning on the offensive line. He's making sure Jonathan Taylor gets the right number of touches, right? 20 on Sunday in a blowout win. He had 21 in the blowout win against the Dolphins. And then in the one game where the Colts really needed Jonathan Taylor, he had 28 touches against the Broncos. That's good coaching. That's good play calling. And his impact on Daniel Jones and the offense can't be understated. Okay? Also, Ross Campbell asking, do the Colts play the Chargers here or in L.A.? They play them in L.A., right? So they're going out there to play the Rams this Sunday, and then they have to go out there again later in the year, okay? But back to Shane Steichen. I want to close this segment with a tweet that I saw last night from Scott Quessenberry, who played center for Shane Steichen in Los Angeles, okay? And someone tweeted out about how, the Colts ran like a normal ISO play, like an old school halfback ISO against the Titans. That was the long 47-yard touchdown run from Jonathan Taylor. And then Scott Quessenberry, former center of the Chargers who played for Shane Steichen, tweeted this: Shane Steichen had the best feel for the game of any coach I'd ever been around, paired with the ability to scheme runs during the week, makes him lethal at all points during the game. When we talk about coaches, especially offensive-minded guys like the Ben Johnsons of the world and the Shane Steichens, we immediately go to the quarterback. Oh, this guy's going to come in and he's going to fix this quarterback. Oh, J.J. McCarthy is so lucky to be playing for the Minnesota Vikings because he gets to be with the quarterback whisperer, Kevin O'Connell. Quarterback, quarterback, quarterback. Right? Like we immediately pair those two things together, and rightfully so, because obviously the quarterback and the coach, they're going to work together a bunch when they're coming up with the scheme and the play calling, and the head coach is going to tweak his system to fit it around the skill set of whoever's playing quarterback. But the one thing we often forget, or the one thing I don't think that people think about enough, is how coaching and play calling also impacts the run game. Because that's where everything starts in the NFL. You have to be able to run the football. If you can't run the football, then you're just simply not going to win very many games. Like that is just the very simple reality of the NFL. Okay, like that's just how it's always worked. And when you go back to last year and you look at the best teams in the NFL, all of them, every single one of them ran the football well. The Buffalo Bills were an excellent team last year. They led the NFL in rushing. The Washington Commanders were an excellent team last year. They were second in the NFL in rushing. The Lions, fourth in the NFL in rushing. Who else was good last year? Denver, eight. This is this year. My bad. Let me go back to last year. I gotta fix my thing here. Let me go back to last year. Baltimore led the NFL in rushing. Great team. Philadelphia won the Super Bowl, second in the league in rushing. Detroit went 15-2, third in the NFL in rushing. Washington played in the NFC Championship game, fourth in the NFL in rushing. Green Bay made the playoffs, sixth in the NFL in rushing. Tampa Bay won their division, fifth in the NFL in rushing. Buffalo played in the AFC title game, ninth in the NFL in rushing. San Francisco, good every year. What do people talk about with Kyle Shanahan? His ability to run the football. Okay, the only team last year that was good and didn't run the football well was the Kansas City Chiefs. And guess what? They have the best quarterback in the world right now. But it is a common theme. You have to be able to run the football in order to win games in the NFL. And that is something that Shane Steichen is good at. That is something that he has figured out how to do here in Indianapolis. Even with the bad team last year, the Colts had a top 10 rushing offense in the NFL. So Shane Steichen's ability to not only, help Daniel Jones kind of get his career back on track, as it looks like he's done through 3 games, but also his ability to figure out how to run the football. Even last year when the offensive line was super banged up, it's impressive. And it's part of why the Colts are as good of a football team as they are. Not only has Shane Steichen helped Daniel Jones figure it out, but they're also running the football so incredibly effectively. And that is what the best teams in the NFL do. They find ways to run the football. And you're going to be hard-pressed to find an NFL team this year running the football better than the Indianapolis Colts are right now. And part of why running the football is so important is because it then allows you to throw the football down the field. One of my biggest concerns and one of my biggest critiques for the Colts this year and with Daniel Jones was the downfield passing. He has been so good. Daniel Jones has been so good at throwing the football past the sticks. I've got those numbers for you here in about 4 minutes, and I've also got why it's helped unlock this Colts offense.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there and watch the show there, you can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, 1430 a.m. as well if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. Now, talked a little bit there in that last segment about Shane Steichen and how important he's been just with not the development, but the resurgence of Daniel Jones's career and how he's done a really good job of helping the Colts run the football, going back to last year, even with the offensive line injuries. And now this year, right, they're running the football incredibly well. And Daniel Jones looks awesome. And one of my concerns with Daniel Jones coming over here and winning the job was his inability to throw the football down the field when he was in New York. And that has been the biggest difference through these first three games. When you compare his time in New York throwing the football down the field compared to what he's done in Indianapolis these first 3 weeks, I want to look at these last two games. Okay? Against the Titans, he was 7 of 9 on passes over 10 yards down the field against the Titans. Against the Broncos, one of the best defenses in the NFL, he was 6 of 10 on passes over 10 yards down the field against the Broncos. The short passing with Daniel Jones was always going to be good. He did that really well when he was playing with the Giants. Okay, and we've seen him do that really well playing here in Indianapolis. The issue in New York, and I think part of why, I know that part of why the people there were frustrated with him was because there was a lack of aggressiveness in the way that he threw the football. Like, he just didn't push the ball down the field enough. 3rd and 7, instead of letting it rip, 8 yards down the field, he's just kind of flicking it out into the flat, hoping that Saquon Barkley can do something amazing. And when he did throw the football down the field, it usually fell incomplete. The difference in Indianapolis is the short passing is still good. Okay? Like, once again, that was never going to leave him. Okay? Like, you could, like, that the throw against the Broncos where Michael Pittman Jr. is being draped all over by Patrick Surtain, and you see Daniel Jones throw an absolutely perfect pass. Like, that's always been there, and that will always be there. Okay, that short to intermediate passing from Daniel Jones was always going to be good. And now he's hitting the deep shots. 13 of 19 in the last two games on throws over 10 yards down the field. And he's 24 of 33 on his throws under 10 yards in the last 2 weeks. I greatly appreciate the aggressiveness that we have seen from him in these first 3 weeks as the Colts starting quarterback. And, part of that is Daniel Jones being willing to make the throws. But the other part of that is Shane Steichen and the play call and the scheme. I feel like not all of, but a lot of the throws down the field that, Daniel Jones has made, they've been pretty open. You go to the Josh Downs reception against the Titans, right, where they run that little bootleg to the left, and then they throw it all the way back across the field to Josh Downs, who slipped out to the right. Like it's things like that. And he's making those throws. And part of it is Daniel Jones being willing to make the throws. But the other part of it is Shane Steichen scheming up those plays and getting those guys wide open. But once again, I do appreciate Daniel Jones and his willingness to push the ball down the field and his willingness to give guys a chance. Let's go back to the Broncos game again, where, he's got Alec Pierce one-on-one on the outside, and he just takes a shot. He's like, I like my guy more than your guy. So he throws it up, Alec Pierce makes a catch, right? Big place, and it sets up a Colts score. Sunday against the Titans, he did it again. A.D. Mitchell, one-on-one coverage, throws it up, underthrows it. A.D. Mitchell works back to the football. He gets a pass interference call at like the 1 yard line. Next play, Jonathan Taylor punches the ball in for 6. Okay, that has been the most pleasant and most surprising part of the Colts offense to start the season. Explosive plays are such an important thing, and I know I talked about it a ton last year because the Colts were consistently looking for explosives because they had to, okay, because Anthony Richardson just wasn't consistent enough to methodically work them down the field. And in order to be a prolific offense in the NFL, you have to generate these explosive plays. The Ravens score a bunch of points because Derrick Henry's going to have multiple 10-plus yard runs in every NFL game that he plays in. That's what it seems like, at least. Lamar Jackson, same thing. He's going to hit Zay Flowers, for a 20-yard pop, what feels like two or three times a game. If you watched the Lions last night, it felt like every possession where they scored a touchdown, they hit Amon-Ra St. Brown for a gain of like 18 yards or more. The Bills, same thing. Like, they hit big plays pretty consistently, whether that's, James Cook out of the backfield or Josh Allen using his legs or, finding, Keon Coleman down the sideline, big physical receiver. The Chargers have scored a fair amount of points this year. Seems like every time they hit Quentin Johnston on a post or on a go, they end up scoring a touchdown. You have to be explosive to be able to put up big points in the NFL. Look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs had the best quarterback in the NFL. And the Chiefs lost their explosiveness on offense when they traded away Tyreek Hill. Since they made that trade, their offense is not as prolific as it was beforehand. Their offense took a step back with Patrick freaking Mahomes when they got rid of the most explosive piece of their offense. You have to make big plays, big chunk plays in order to be a top 5 offense in the NFL. And right now, the Indianapolis Colts are second in the NFL in scoring offense. And it's because they've consistently hit on these downfield throws. Okay, the Michael Pittman Jr. 27-yard touchdown reception week 1 against Miami. We've seen the Colts red zone offense. Like that, like plays like that are important because the Colts have struggled in the red zone. Okay, the 20-yard touchdown pass to Michael Pittman Jr. on Sunday. Same thing. Okay, the Colts have struggled inside the 10. Great. Just score from 20 yards out, but a 20-yard play is technically an explosive play. Okay? Second in the NFL in scoring through 3 weeks. I know 2 of their games came against bad defenses, but putting 29 points on the Broncos is impressive. Why did it happen? Jonathan Taylor had a couple big plays. He had the 47-yard reception and he had the 68-yard run. Alec Pierce had a big play down the sideline. Okay? 29 points against that Broncos defense does not happen without Daniel Jones hitting multiple big throws down the field. Okay, so I've just been very impressed with the downfield throwing from Daniel Jones. It is the biggest jump from last year to this year, right, for him in terms of his time in New York. And it also just makes the underneath stuff easier. Like, if you can't push the ball down the field, then that's less space for Jonathan Taylor to run the football. It's less space for Jonathan Taylor out in the flat, and so on. So it just makes things easier when you can run the football because teams have to respect that. And then, if you can throw it deep, it makes it even better. Okay, the Colts offense has looked so incredibly complete to start the season. And a large chunk of that is because of Shane Steichen and the way that he's called plays, but it's also because of Daniel Jones and his ability and his willingness to push the football down the field and make these big time throws. C. Fitch asked an interesting question over on X. He asked if I think that the NFL will flex Colts Chargers to Sunday Night Football to replace San Francisco and Atlanta. That is a Week 7 game. The answer is no. They don't usually flex games until later in the year. It's just kind of how it is. So, no, I don't think that'll happen. Atlanta, they may turn it around before then. The 49ers are undefeated. I'd also be willing to bet that if you looked at the teams in the NFL that draw the most eyes, the Cowboys are one. The 49ers are probably top 5. The Atlanta area is huge. It's a numbers thing. I think that more people would watch Falcons, 49ers because of just the market size compared to the Colts and the Chargers, because let's be honest, no one in LA cares about the Chargers, and Indianapolis is just a smaller market compared to all the other ones. So, yeah, no, I don't think that'll happen. Sorry. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, I got even more stuff on the Colts. The Colts' red zone offense is better, or it was better on Sunday than it had been compared to the earlier parts of the season. I'm going to have Zach Hicks on here in about 25 minutes, and we will discuss the Colts offense because it's just been so awesome to start the year.
it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to tune into the show. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith. Follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. I know there's a lot of different places that you could go to listen to people talk about the Colts and sports in general, so I greatly appreciate you picking my show, at least for the time being. The Colts, 3-0. People are excited, as they should be. And the thing that I like about this Colts team, I feel like guys have gotten better. You know, Jonathan Taylor's like a real 3-down back now. Alec Pierce is doing more than running goes and posts. And Michael Pittman Jr., the perimeter blocking, look, he's always been good at that, but it feels like it's kind of gone to another level. Our guy, Adonai Mitchell, he seems like he's gotten a little bit better. It's only been 3 games. He's been used sparingly. And so, you know, Tanner Bortolini, Matt Gonsalves both clearly worked their butts off to, you know, be as good as they've been to start the season. And I think that bodes well for how the rest of the year is going to go when you have guys in your locker room that are willing to work on their games. And I say that because the NFL season, it's a long season. It's 17 weeks. Excuse me. It's 18 weeks. And teams will and can and will get better as the year progresses. And I do think that part of that is a locker room thing. You have to have guys that are committed to getting better if you want to improve as the season goes on. And I think we saw the Colts take a slight step in the proper direction on Sunday. The red zone offense was better. Okay, they got in the red zone 4 times. I'm not going to count one of them simply because, you know, it was the 2-minute drill to close the first half, and they ended up kicking a field goal, but it was simply because they just didn't have enough time. Okay, but outside of that, they were 2 for 3, right? Got in the red zone three times, and they scored 2 touchdowns. Okay, and it got off to a bit of a rough start. You know, they get the football, they work it down to the Titans' 6-yard line, and they had to take a field goal. And it's just like, geez, like, are we going to get another week of this Colts offense not being able to score touchdowns in the red zone? But after that first drive, much better, right? They got a Jonathan Taylor rushing touchdown after a L'Jarius Sneed hold, put the ball at the 1-yard line, right? The second red zone drive came after, you know, the worst coaching mistake I think we've ever seen from Brian Callahan. Titans take a delayed game penalty, a 57-yard field goal becomes a 62-yard field goal. He misses. Colts get the ball at the Titans 48, and they end up getting 3 points out of it, you know, because they had, I think, just like a little over a minute to make that happen. So not going to count that one. Their next red zone possession, Daniel Jones hit Michael Pittman Jr. for a 20-yard touchdown pass. The next red zone possession, Jonathan Taylor had a 1-yard touchdown run. So 3 real red zone possessions, and they scored 2 touchdowns. That is so much better than what we saw against the Broncos and the Dolphins, where it felt like every time they got into the red area, it resulted in them having to kick a field goal. And look, those 4 extra points are big. Okay? Those 4 extra points are huge. Not against the Titans and not against the Dolphins, but when they play teams that can really score the football, like week 7 when they go on the road to the Chargers, or this Sunday when they go on the road to play against the Rams, like, they need touchdowns, not field goals, to beat those teams who can really score the football. So it's nice seeing this red zone offense take a nice little step in the right direction. I thought they ran the ball more in the red zone, and they didn't have any negative plays, which is a really big part of it. Like the one possession where the Colts had to kick a field goal, they had a penalty that set them up for a 1st and 20. Whether you're in the red zone, midfield, backed up on like your own 5-yard line, if you have 1st and 20, you're probably not going to pick up that first down. You have to avoid negative plays when you are in the red zone. The other two possessions, when the Colts were in the red zone and they scored touchdowns, guess what they didn't have? Any negative plays. When you can run the football the way that the Colts can, you should be an awesome red zone team. You just have to avoid, holding or false start or anything like that. Okay? The biggest thing, though, that I liked about the Colts red zone stuff is they mixed it up a little bit. For the first time all year, we saw Daniel Jones run the read option. That was something that we hadn't seen. And look, the reason why we hadn't seen it was because the Colts didn't need to do that. He ran the read option a lot in New York because he just wasn't very good at throwing the football. But he's been so good early in the year that he hasn't needed to run at all, really, outside of, maybe some scrambles here and there. But they went to the read option. As I said, they ran the football more. I know it was the Titans. I know T'Vondre Sweat didn't play. But the red zone offense for the Colts, I thought, looked much better against the Titans compared to the first two games of the year. Now, the Colts defense looked much improved as well. I saw someone mention how the Colts have not only the number 2 ranked scoring offense in the NFL, but they also have I think someone said they have the second best scoring defense in the NFL, which I honestly find kind of hard to believe. Not saying that it's wrong, but when you give up 29 to the Broncos, yeah, they're 9th. But still, a top 5 scoring offense and a top 10 scoring defense usually leads to a lot of wins. And it has for the Colts so far, right? They're 3-0. But let's keep in mind, they played the Dolphins week 1. They played the Titans week 3. The one game where the Colts have played at least decent quarterback in Bo Nix and a good offensive mind in Sean Payton, they gave up 29 points, and they probably lose that game if Bo Nix doesn't sail a throw. This week, when they play Stafford, they're going to give up some points. That's just simply what's going to happen. And I still don't trust this defense. If you can't tell, the Colts, to their credit, the run defense on Sunday was finally good. It was finally good. Yes, it was the Titans without their starting right tackle, but Tony Pollard had 16 carries for 45 yards. His longest run of the day was 10 yards. That's impressive, right? Like that is a good outing from the Colts run defense. But once again, it was against the Titans, whose offensive line hasn't been very good to start the season, and their starting right tackle didn't play. And while I like Tony Pollard, I think everyone understands that he's not exactly an elite running back. He's not Kyron Williams, who the Colts are going to see on Sunday. The Rams' offensive line, pretty solid. They've got a weakness at center, but aside from that, it's hard not to like what they have. So it was nice to see this Colts defense finally have a good day, not overly dependent on forcing turnovers. But I've got to see it more than once before I can just firmly be yes, Lou Anarumo, the defense looks great. Now, I will say that the tackling for the Colts has been much better this season than it was last year. And part of that is because they got rid of EJ Speed, which shout out to him. He's playing for the Texans on Sunday, and he missed a big tackle like has an opportunity to get a stop. He misses the tackle. The Jags convert, and then the Jags go on to win that game. And that's the play. It's the possession where the Jaguars actually score their game-winning touchdown. Okay, the guys that the Colts have brought in tackle really well. Like Cam Bynum, when he gets his hands on somebody, they're going down. Charvarius Ward or Mooney Ward for some reason, as people call him. Same thing. Okay, like he tackles really well in space. Joe Bacci, a guy who's been a special teamer for forever, right? Finally comes in, starting alongside of Zaire Franklin. He's done a good job. Very good, sound tackler. Zaire Franklin playing really well or tackling really well. Let me slow my roll a little bit. Tackling really well. And I do think that part of it is he's not being asked to make as many tackles. Last year, if you looked at the Colts box scores, it's like only 3 guys were allowed to tackle whoever had the football. It's like Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, and Nick Cross. That was it. And teams talk about how the run game can kind of wear on teams throughout the course of a game. Like fourth quarter, guys are tired and they're a little sore already. And in the fourth quarter, you start to see guys miss tackles. Jonathan Taylor, long run against the Titans where he breaks like 3 tackles. It came in the second half. The run game can just kind of wear people down over the course of the game. And something that I've noticed in all 3 of these Colts games so far, no one has logged a double-digit tackle game. No one has done it yet. Nick Cross had 7 on Sunday. Zaire Franklin had 7. Okay, like you're not seeing these 18 tackle performances from Zaire Franklin. And I think that's helping him because he's just not being asked to do as much. That helps you stay a little bit fresher. Okay, so I think when you're asked to make 7 or 8 tackles a game as opposed to 20, like you're just going to be better because you're not going to be as worn down as you would be if you were asked to make 20 tackles a game. Also, Nick Cross continues to impress. I don't know if anyone else is seeing this, but he is coming down from the strong safety spot, making tackles. Such a good tackler in space. Saw it last year, was amongst the league leaders in the NFL in tackles. It's usually not a good thing if your strong safety is, a top 10 in the NFL in tackles, but he's just very consistent in that regard. There hasn't been a bad coverage bust on his end yet, because I know last year, in terms of his ability to cover, there were questions. It wasn't always super consistent. And so it just kind of seems like he's starting to find his rhythm a bit, and he's kind of turning into a really, really good player. And when you talk to people that are way smarter than I am about Lou Anarumo and his system and the way that he runs it and all those things, like you have to have a safety who can tackle. It's the reality of it. And the Colts have that in both Cam Bynum and Nick Cross. This Sunday, they're both going to have to be awesome because they're playing against the Rams. And Xavier Howard's going to have to defend Puka Nacua or Devontae Adams. And that's not going to go well for Xavier Howard because he's been bad these last 2 weeks. Comes out week 1 against his former team and just looks awesome to a point where Tua doesn't even throw the football to his side of the field. And then they play the Broncos, and he's, committing all these pass interferences and holdings, and he did it again this previous Sunday against the Titans, and he's got to button it up a little bit because if you can't defend the Broncos or the Titans receivers, you're in for a rude awakening when, Devontae Adams or Puka Nacua or whoever else comes running at you from the Rams. So still have some questions about the defense, but there are certainly things to like, and it looks like things might be heading in the right direction in terms of the run game from in terms of the run defense from the Colts, we will definitely find out Sunday if they're actually moving in the right direction or if the Titans' offensive line is just not very good. At 11 o'clock, 5 minutes away, Zach Hicks is going to join the show. We'll talk about the win over the Titans and the 3-0 start. We'll look ahead a little bit to the Los Angeles Rams. It's going to be fun. Colts going to have a real chance to go 4-0 because when your offense is clicking the way that it is right now for the Colts, just makes it a lot easier to win games, even if your defense is a little iffy like the Colts is. Zach Hicks, a Locked On Colts, joins the show here in about 4.5 minutes.
Paid for by auto discount policy.
Aw, man, my car insurance went up this month.
And you're still going to keep that policy?
Yeah, I've had the same auto insurance for years. My rate's gone up a little, but that's just how it works, right?
I was the same way. Just paid whatever they told me. Then I called auto discount policy and found out I was overpaying by hundreds a year.
Seriously?
Oh yeah, it took me 5 minutes. I called and they compared rates from top providers. They even saved me $650 a year.
Wait, $650 just for making one call?
Yep, they don't care about your driving record, credit score, even if you're not insured right now.
Okay, I'm calling right now.
Don't settle for the same auto insurance plan. Find out how you can save up to $650 a year on auto insurance. There's no obligation, no hassle, just real savings you can start putting back in your pocket today. Call 800-735-2036. That's 800-735-2036. One last time, 800-735-2036.
Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. You can watch the show over on YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X, _ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM as well if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. I'm joined now by the one and only Zach Hicks, who joins the show every Tuesday at this time during the Colts season, and it's always a blast when he's on. Zach, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing good, man. There's just something in the water with Indianapolis sports this year, from the Pacers to the Fever, now the Colts. I mean, I feel like it's a fun time for anyone who is just a sports fan in Indianapolis right now, just in Indiana in general, actually, if you want to expand this to Indiana football as well in college. So I'm excited for all the people listening here. This is such a fun time for all Indiana fans.
The Fever, they won their series. They beat the Aces in their first game as well. So I just want to get you on the record here. Are you predicting that the Colts are going to play in the Super Bowl and they will lose after Daniel Jones tragically tears his Achilles?
Oh, that would be the worst. But I mean, I still, like, for all the great that it's been this year, that has to be the most heartbreaking moment in the history of sports for all Indiana fans. But again, it was such a magical run. So if the Colts were to get that far, you know, whatever happens, but getting that far would be fantastic for sure.
It'd be good. It would be a lot of fun. Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. So how good are the Colts?
I think they're pretty good, man. Like, you know, we see this sometimes with teams where, you know, I think everyone brings up like the New Orleans Saints early last season, right? Where the New Orleans Saints were this highly efficient offense to start the year. And then as injuries piled up and other things happened for them, they became the team that they ultimately were, which was like a below 500 team. So we do see some teams come out with hot starts every now and then just kind of peter off down the stretch. But to me, the biggest indication of how quality a team is just, do you take care of business against the bad teams and win by multiple scores? And then do you exchange punches with the good teams? And you know, maybe you'll lose some of those games, but you can also steal a couple of those wins as well. And through 3 games, we've seen the Colts be relatively unchallenged by 2 bad teams with the Miami Dolphins and Tennessee Titans. Like, those weren't remotely close games. Both games are pretty much locked up by halftime in those 2 showings. And then against the Denver Broncos, a team that we can all agree is probably going to be there by the end of the season in terms of the playoff hunt, the Colts were able to exchange blows with them and get that victory at the end. So, yeah, I think they're a pretty good team. Like, again, maybe if you want to take a step back and say they're not as good as what, you know, they're showing right now, which, I mean, the pace they're on right now looks like they're going to be the 1 seed in the AFC. But even if you want to take a couple steps back and say, like, you know, the 3 or 4 seed in the AFC that could win the AFC South, or a high-end wild card team, I certainly buy that. I certainly buy this team being good. I think the offense has a lot of weapons and a lot of things clicking right now, and Daniel Jones is playing some great football. And then on defense, even if the talent isn't the same level as the offense right now, I think the coaching and the scheme is pretty good, and I think they'll be able to do enough to propel this team to victory. So I think they're going to be one of those teams where, more so even in the last couple of years, where they're in the conversation at the end of the season, I think they'll be right there in the mix and have a good chance to not only make the playoffs, but maybe win this AFC South this year.
Winning the division seems very possible, especially after the Texans' 0-3 start. Shout out to former Colt EJ Speed for missing a big tackle on the Jaguars' final possession, where they just kind of marched it down the field. Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. I think the Colts are at like the top of the second tier in the AFC. Like they're not the Bills. I don't think they're as good as the Ravens or the Chargers, but everyone else in the AFC, at least, I think they are more than capable of playing with and or beating.
Yeah, I think it's a fair assessment right now. And again, like, you would put teams like the Broncos, the Chiefs, maybe the Jaguars up there as well. They've had a pretty good start to the year. Their defense is playing really well. And yeah, I don't see any reason not to put the Colts over those teams as of right now, with some of the issues we're seeing from those other teams and just how dominant the Colts have been. I mean, honestly, if we're just going off of this year alone, you have an argument for putting them up there with the Bills and the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens are 1-2, and the Colts are 3-0. I know we all agree that they're going to be in that 1 seed conversation by the end of the season, but I think the Colts have shown fewer flaws than the Ravens so far. It's just they have a multiple-time MVP winner at quarterback, so it does change some things. But yeah, this Colts team I think is legit. I think their offense is going to be a top 10 unit by the end of the season. I just don't see any way it falls out of the top 10 unless injuries really pile up. There's just too many weapons. There's too many ways that they can attack you, both through the running game and the passing game. And I think this defense will probably be in that like 15 to 20 range, which isn't like amazing, but when you have a top 10 offense, that makes you basically a playoff team. So yeah, I don't want to like stamp playoffs, but if we're looking forward to the rest of the season, they're already 3-0. And so they have 14 games left. They only really got to win 7 of those 14 to get to double-digit wins and make the playoffs. So they have to be a 500 team down the stretch. And I think they're perfectly capable of doing that, even if you factor in some injuries here. So I think they're a legit team this year. I think people are sleeping on them still a little bit. You don't have to put them up there with the elites of the NFL, like the Bills, but I'm with you. I think right after you get to those Bills and the Eagles and stuff, I don't know why the Colts wouldn't be in that next conversation.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about just how good the Colts are. And the big thing that I think we're all waiting on is the injuries, right? Like they haven't really happened yet. Kenny Moore hurts his calf. He's only gonna miss a couple of weeks. Alec Pierce has a concussion. Who are the irreplaceable guys for the Colts? Where like if this guy gets hurt and misses like a month, the Colts are going to be in trouble for that month.
Yeah, I mean the biggest ones obviously if we're looking at the offense, because the offense has just been this well-oiled machine so far to start the year. So you certainly don't want to see long-term injuries to. I mean, Daniel Jones is obviously the biggest one. Either of the offensive tackles would be pretty tough. Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren, those guys are probably the most pivotal pieces of the offense, and they could disrupt the overall flow they have there. Luckily at wide receiver, with Pierce potentially being out this week, they have so many weapons at wide receiver that maybe you can survive not having him, even though he's such a great ISO threat. It does hurt, but you can probably survive a receiver going down. But I think, like the Tyler Warrens, the Jonathan Taylors, Daniel Jones, the tackles, those would be pretty tough to overcome for the Colts. And then on defense, I mean, Charvarius Ward, we saw exactly what the defense looked like when he missed that week 2 game. Just the pass coverage wasn't great because both sides of the field were kind of open. And we saw against the Tennessee Titans, when the Titans tried to go after him, it was pretty suffocating for their offense. He was all over receivers and making some big-time plays. So I think Charvarius Ward would be probably the biggest one. Cameron Bynum, because the safety depth behind them is pretty rough. But I do think the defense, because they're already not the better of the 2 units, they can probably survive injuries more because there's not as big of expectations placed on them, where like the offense is kind of carrying everything right now with how great they've been. So you just want to stay as healthy as possible on that side of the ball. So we'll see how the offense looks this week if Pierce does miss, but luckily they've been very healthy on that side. And the key has just been their ability to diversify their attack. I mean, they can beat you in so many ways. So as long as all those guys stay healthy on offense, it is so hard to stop what they're doing there.
It really is. And look, if Alec Pierce misses a game, AD Mitchell will be fine, kind of filling in, being a guy who can kind of stretch the field with his speed. When I'm kind of excited to see him. Like they've used him a little bit this year. It's been kind of sparingly. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to maybe seeing AD Mitchell if Alec Pierce doesn't clear protocol, which most guys don't. But I do want to go back to the defense. As you mentioned, the one game that Xavier Howard missed, it was very ugly. And I feel like it's going to be kind of ugly this Sunday because they've got to deal with Matthew Stafford, Devontae Adams, and Puka Nacua. How do the Colts go about dealing with probably Adams? Because I'm assuming that they're going to put Ward on Puka.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the big thing is you want to get Ward on Puka as much as possible. It's going to be tough to keep him on there all the time because the Rams are so creative with how they move him around. He'll get backfield snaps. He'll get inline snaps. He'll get bunch look snaps where they give him some natural, like, pick plays and stuff. Like, they do everything they can to get him the ball because he is one of those superstar receivers in the league. So Ward will be on him as much as possible. But, yeah, Adams will be tough. Kyron Williams at running back is a very, very good rusher. They run a lot of play action as well, which will really test these linebackers, which we haven't seen the best results so far. So it will be a pretty tough test this week against the Los Angeles Rams. I just think the biggest part is just continuing what they're doing in terms of diversifying the looks on defense, changing the picture as much as possible, bringing heavy pressure one snap and then showing that same pressure the next and bailing out of it. Just making Stafford feel as uncomfortable as possible, because for anything negative we want to say about this Colts defense through 3 weeks, they have forced 5 turnovers, and one of those was a pick six as well. And the Colts are +5 in the turnover differential. If we look at every single team right now who is undefeated, they're around that same, like that +4, +5 in turnover differential. It's a huge part of winning football nowadays with field position and just moving the ball forward. So this Colts defense, it's not really going to be a plan this week where, we need to go out there and hold Stafford to 7 points. I think more so it's going to be, he's going to get his, let's make him work for it. And then the couple opportunities he gives us where we have a chance to hit him from behind for a sack, or we have a chance to jump or in an in-breaking route, we got to capitalize and get that ball back for our offense, because our offense is, again, just a lethal machine right now. So for the defense, I just keep doing what they're doing, stay in front of it, keep everything in front, keep Ward on Puka as much as possible to limit that production, and then take advantage of those 2 to 3 plays a game that ultimately could change it, like we saw in the first 3 weeks. Again, the Colts defense has been really good at taking the ball away. If they can keep that going forward, then the Colts are always going to have a chance to win games.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about Colts versus Rams, kind of looking ahead a little bit while also appreciating the 3-0 start. Despite the Colts starting 3-0, Laiatu Latu has been, I don't think he's been terrible.
It's tough to say it, right?
He hasn't like consistently shown up, but I don't think he's played bad, but I can't say that because he doesn't have a sack. He obviously has the one interception. I thought Sunday, he got held every time he rushed the passer. And I feel like every time he gets home, Bo Nix or Cam Ward were just oh, let me just be very athletic and get away from this. What are kind of your thoughts on Latu kind of through these first, or I guess not Nix because he didn't play in that game, but what are kind of your thoughts on Latu to start the season?
Yeah, it's tough because I think he's played fine, just kind of like how his rookie season was, where he's not bad by any means. He's a good pressure machine. There are some areas here and there that he could be better. I still think there's some issues with power and just controlling the edge in both the run and the passing game. But overall, he's a productive player who creates pressure and forces quarterbacks to move around back there. It's just the Colts kind of need him to be a superstar this year, and it's very unfair to him. He's in his second year, but on the other hand, he is a 25-year-old former top 15 pick that the Colts need him to kind of be like that kind of impact. So it's kind of a push-pull with it. I think the bigger issue, honestly, with the Colts pass rush is just the non-Latu guys and non-Buckner guys as well. Buckner's just getting double-teamed at the highest rate in football right now, so it's hard for him to be as productive. But those other guys, they just don't have much juice right now. Samson Ebukam, they're paying him $10 million, and he just doesn't have it anymore. And we all said it all off season long that he wasn't going to have it as a 30-plus-year-old pass rusher coming off an Achilles, but the Colts are relying on him. Kwity Paye is just not a big-time pass rusher, and he's making, $12 million this year as well, and he's just not that big-time pass rusher either. Tyquan Lewis actually might be the next best guy, but he's not consistent as a pass rusher either. So it's just tough, and it sucks seeing Dayo Dengbo being so dominant with the Bears as a pass rusher when the Colts are paying Ebukam and Paye just as much combined to not get that same production. So I think Latu would be better if the other guys around him were a bit better, but at the same token, he's not really playing like a top 15 pick who's 25 years old, Yeah. You want to see just that next step from him still. And he still has plenty of time. He had the hamstring injury in week going into week 2, and he was certainly hampered by it here in week 3 a little bit. So it's just so hard to have a conversation with him because he's not really the biggest issue, but he's still not the solution either right now in the pass rush. So we might have to just give it time, see if Ebukam gets better as time goes on, if Paye eventually finds something that works for him, and if Latu can turn that corner. But as of right now, the Colts pass rush certainly looks like the weakest part of their team.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about the Colts and the 3-0 start. I do think you mentioned how Buckner's been doubled a ton. I think he and Grover Stewart are going to have big days on Sunday because I don't know how much of the Rams you've watched. The guys that they have playing center, whether it's Coleman Shelton or Bo Limmer, 6th round pick out of Arkansas this last year, they're just not very good. And I felt like in their game against the Eagles, like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, obviously like two of the better interior defensive linemen in football, just kind of had their way and kind of blew them up in that second half. Where do you think are kind of the areas where the Colts do have the advantage over a Rams team that I think expects to at least make an NFC title game this year?
Yeah, I think the three biggest areas are kind of the areas that the Colts have been winning all year. And one of them is what you mentioned, in that those trenches on offense and defense, the Grover Stewart versus whoever has been a great asset for the Colts. I know their run defense hasn't been perfect this year, but I mean, when they are getting stuffed, it's because Grover Stewart is just destroying guys on the interior because he's just that good of a player. So I think on defense, like you mentioned, is just getting after those younger centers, those younger interior offensive linemen, and taking advantage of those injuries there is going to be big for them. But on the other side of the ball, I think there's two areas to exploit that kind of make me think that this could be another pretty big offensive showing for the Colts. And one is the Rams cornerback room is kind of beat up right now and very small. It's a very, very small cornerback room. And it would be nice to have had Alex Pierce for this, but the Colts have been doing a lot of plays this year where they're doing 7-8-man protections and just doing ISO routes to the outside to Pittman, Pierce, and AD Mitchell, and just saying, like, we dare your corner to try to cover one of these guys one-on-one. And, if you're going to have a 180-pound corner, 170-pound corner trying to cover Michael Pittman Jr. in those situations, he's going to catch the ball 9 times out of 10. And then on the other hand, AD Mitchell, I mean, nobody can cover him one-on-one. So they're going to just force feed those, I think, quite a bit and really attack these corners. And the other one is just their linebacker room. The Colts have just feasted on linebackers this year. So much of what their offense does, and we looked at what they did this past week against the Titans, where they did bootleg action on like 10 pass plays in that game to just squeeze and pinch these poor linebackers that had no clue what was going on every play. So if your linebacker play is not like Fred Warner good, the Colts are going to attack you mercilessly with the play action, with the over the middle routes, with screen plays. And I think they're going to go after these Rams linebackers hard and heavy all game long. So I think on paper, this should be a pretty good showing for the Colts offense. I think the only question is just, can Jared Verse wreck the game like he's done in the past to some other teams? But if they can keep Jared Verse under control, I think this Colts offense is going to have another pretty big showing this weekend.
It's not even just Jared Verse. Once again, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. Like, the Rams pass rush is pretty legit. Like, Byron Young off the edge is pretty good. Braden Fisk is a pretty solid player. I like Kobe Turner as well. I know he's a little undersized for the position he plays, but still a really good player. I want to go back to something that you just said. You talked about how the Colts have kind of taken advantage of the opposing team's linebackers. And when I hear that, I immediately go to like, okay, like Tyler Warren matched up on a linebacker. Like, that's obviously a really good matchup. And then you get to like Josh Downs in the slot, kind of the same idea. But like Josh Downs has kind of gotten off to a slow start. And like, I've got a take that a lot of people don't like. And I don't like the player podcast thing. And and so like, I really want to blame that. You probably have a much better idea than I do, though. Why has Josh Downs gotten off to a slow start?
Yeah, I don't know if it's much of the player podcast thing, but I will say so much of it with the Colts offense this year is just, it's such a sum of their parts offense so far to start the year. Like, I guarantee there will be a couple games this year where Downs is close to 100 yards. But there will be a handful of games like week 1 where he only had 12 yards, or this past week where he only had 2 targets for 30 yards, including the big one down the sideline. Because you look at the Broncos game, for instance, they relied on him a lot on third downs, and he had a really productive game in that one. So he might not hit the yardage total that we all wanted coming into the year. Like, when Daniel Jones was named the starter, the Daniel Jones I expected to come in here, I thought was just going to pepper Josh Downs. I thought Josh Downs was going to have 100 catches, and I just don't see that happening this year. But the inverse of that is just, it's kind of an offense where everyone eats right now. Like, there's not really one guy that you have to take away outside of Jonathan Taylor. But the thing with Jonathan Taylor is he'll run into a brick wall for 3 quarters, and then he'll break off a 70-yard run in the 4th. So there's no real way to stop Jonathan Taylor. These other guys, though, like, you could have a whole game plan designed on taking away Tyler Warren, and the Colts will make him a decoy all game. That's fine. They'll make him a decoy all game, and they'll throw the ball to Pittman and Downs and Pierce and Mo Alley-Cox has a couple catches this year. Like, they'll do what they can with other guys. Like, there's not really one or two guys that you can focus on. And I think that guys like Downs and even Pierce, like, we're all praising how well Pierce has played this year, but it's not like he has body numbers through 3 games. He has what, like 6 catches, 7? No, I think he has like 9 catches because he had like 4 in that week 2 game. But, it's nothing too crazy. Even Pittman, who's the clear number 1, it's not like he's going off for 100 yards every single game. So, yeah, this Colts offense is just, everyone kind of eats, everyone's involved. And if you want to take away one option, well, cool. We'll go to other options here. So Downs isn't going to hit some crazy numbers, but I guarantee there will be a couple games where, teams want to sit in base a little bit more, or they just want to travel their nickel corner with him in man coverage for most of the game, like the Broncos did. And when those teams want to play man, Downs is going to be the go-to guy, like he was in week 2. So, yeah, I just think this offense is just such a good mix of, we can throw it to anyone. Like, if you want to take away one guy, that's cool. We'll just keep pushing it around to everybody else.
It's like you said, it's a very balanced attack, which I think helps. Because, like, if you're playing for the Vikings, like, you have to target Justin Jefferson like 12 times a game. Like, you just have to. And with this Colts team, like, there's not really a guy like that, which I think makes it a little bit easier. And I'm glad that you said what you said about Downs and kind of the expectation when Daniel Jones came in here, once again joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about the Colts. I was in the same boat as you. I was like, we're getting check down Daniel Jones, Josh Downs, 100 receptions this year, a ton of yards after the catch. But Daniel Jones has come in here, and he's been so good at pushing the ball down the field. Obviously, like the short to intermediate accuracy, I don't think anyone really had questions about. It was, can he push the ball down the field? And this is where I make all the new Daniel Jones lovers really upset. I think a lot of it is Shane Steichen, because, like, I feel like a lot of the balls downfield are, for example, on Sunday they run the play action bootleg out to the left. They slip Josh Downs out to the right, and they pick up like 30 yards on that one play. I feel like a lot of it is stuff like that where guys are just very open. How much of the deep plays down the field are Daniel Jones versus Shane Steichen calling and designing a really nice play?
Yeah, I mean, if we want to talk pretty much the only negative about Daniel Jones through 3 weeks, and it's kind of weird how I've seen a lot of comments where like, oh, you guys were saying that he doesn't have a deep ball coming into the year, and I'm like, I mean, have you watched some of his deep balls this season? Like, they haven't been good. And this isn't to say, I mean, look, Daniel Jones is playing outstanding football right now. The deep ball has been pretty awful in a lot of ways. I mean, we look at leaving balls short. I mean, Alec Pierce is going up and saving him on a couple, but it's been very sporadic, and he just doesn't really have. I mean, he's only attempted 8 passes of 20+ air yards this season, and he's left a couple of them like very short, and then also one of those Josh Downs one in the red zone against the Denver Broncos where he sailed it over his head. So I don't think the deep ball has been very effective for him, but he has completed a couple just because the Colts receivers are just open and awesome. I mean, Alec Pierce is going up there and winning everything at the catch point. The only time you can make him not win is when he gets a concussion on the way to the ground, and even then it still looked like a catch on that one. But I think the real standout part with Jones is the intermediate game. That's really where I think he has just been better than I expected, because I thought the short game was going to be good, but he has just been killer in that 10 to 19 air yards range, where middle of the field, forcing just getting it into windows where he needs to, understanding pre-snap that he's going to have a guy in a good leverage situation and throwing it against that leverage. Like, I think mentally he's in a great place. I think he's super accurate and poised, getting that ball out to the intermediate game. And we've seen a lot of good things there. So if we want to have one negative thing with Daniel Jones, the deep ball has fluttered quite a bit throwing the ball down there. And the Colts receivers have just had to bail him out with some good plays, but everything else about him has been awesome. I mean, from the playmaking, from the not taking sacks, where the heck did the not taking sacks come from with Daniel Jones? Like, if you told me anything about Jones coming of the year, I would have said, like, yeah, when pressure gets in his face, he's going to take sacks and panic. And then we saw him whip out that 17-yard scramble to keep the Colts moving and get a first down on Sunday. So you've had that. You've had him just not, like, backing down from 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9s and converting them. Like, everything else he's done has been great. So, again, if maybe you guys can call me, like, a nitpicker and this Daniel Jones hater is back here because his deep ball has kind of fluttered, but, like, I don't have any other negatives to talk about here. Let me be a pessimist for a second here. Like, let me talk about one thing, because everything else he's doing is at a very high level, and there's not really much else to nitpick. Like, we do one segment each week on just the quarterback, right? But we do like our Monday show talking about just the quarterback for a segment, and we only had like 3 minutes to talk about Daniel Jones yesterday on Locked On Colts, because what more can you say about him? He's just been great. It's kind of like when Andrew Luck was, it's very different, obviously, but when Andrew Luck was the quarterback for the Colts, you don't want to devote whole segments to Luck because you know what you're getting. And through 3 weeks, we kind of know what we're getting now with Daniel Jones, where you're getting good, productive football. And I mean, he's maybe had 5 throws through 3 weeks that he would like back that were like not great decisions or thrown against bad leverage or a little inaccurate. That is insane to say about Daniel Jones through 100+ dropbacks through 3 games. He's just been on the tear, and he's been playing some great football.
He has been great football. Like, that's exactly right. And, you know, if we're haters for nitpicking a little bit, I think it's okay. Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. He also writes. He has a YouTube channel. Just search for Zach Hicks. You can follow him on X at Zach Hicks 2. And one of the things that I really appreciated on Sunday was the Colts ran the read option when they were like 4 yards out from the goal line. They didn't get in, but I appreciate the willingness to try something new in the red zone, just with how much the Colts have struggled down there this year. What did you think of the red zone offense on Sunday?
Yeah, it was much better this past Sunday. They avoided kicking their own butt with penalties and taking sacks in the red zone this past Sunday. And then they just ran the ball a lot more. So the read option was one in there, a couple of Jonathan Taylor runs to get them in close. And then, like we said the last couple of weeks, when they've gotten within the 5-yard line, within the 10-yard line, they've been a really good red zone offense. It's just getting in there. So I think they kind of realized, like, let's just pepper the screen game. Let's just run the ball in here and just punch our way into the 10-yard line. And from there, we can get the ball in. So much better red zone offense. I think they were 2 of 3 in red zone opportunities. I think technically it was 2 of 4 because the game ended on a red zone try, but I think it was 2 of 3 in the moments that count, really, in this past game. So that's good. That's good. We want to see that. We want to see more 66% touchdown percentage rather than whatever it was against the Broncos.
Less than 50.
Yeah. Broncos is like 2 of 6 or something.
Yeah.
33% touchdown percentage. You got to convert your chances more than that. And even against the Titans, where they only had 3 chances in the red zone, they converted. And it certainly helps too when you get a pick 6 early, when you have Jonathan Taylor running for a 50-yard touchdown. Like, if you could avoid the red zone, that's cool. But once you're in there, let's punch it in for 6.
It's just the offense has been just so much fun to watch this year. Something else that I thought was fun to watch on Sunday, Zach, have you ever seen 2 timeouts be called and then a team fail to run a play and take a delay a game? I couldn't believe it. What was your reaction when Brian Callahan sealed his fate as one of the first coaches to be fired this year?
Yeah, that was insane. I had a buddy who works in the NFL. I won't say too much more about his role here, but he was texting me after the game being like, that was just a disaster class by Callahan. Like, he was like, I don't really know what you were doing with that situation there. Just so bad. And honestly, again, the Colts game plan in this one was really like, on offense, we're going to let our offense just be the dominant force they are. On defense, though, we're going to sit back and let the Titans kill themselves. We're going to let them commit the penalties against themselves. We're going to let them make the mistakes. And so you kind of saw more bend, don't break from the Colts defense in this one. But like, I think that was the way to go with a team that's just so poorly coached, So they tried 357 plus field goals, 57-yard plus field goals in this game. Like, you know how I feel about kickers, man. That was killing me on the inside, just seeing that. I was upset when the Colts tried a 50-plus yard field goal, but 357-plus yard field goals in a game is absolute insanity. But yeah, I think that sequence is what basically ended the game. Grover Stewart getting the block, Colts going down and getting the chip shot field goal to go up by 14 at the half instead of 8. A 6-point swing when you're the much better team right before the half, and then you get the ball out of halftime, like that game's over. And the Colts just put a stamp on it when they got a touchdown out of the half. But absolute beatdown. And this game was over by halftime because of that decision and Grover Stewart's block.
2 more questions for you, Zach, and I will let you go. When do we see JT Tuimoloau play?
I mean, I would get him out there this weekend. Honestly, I just
anyone but Ibukam.
Yeah, I want Samson Ebukam. Like he's a good dude, man. He was so productive in 2023, but it's just the nature of the injury. Like, and I wish the Colts would have been more like aware of that. Like, it's like my one frustrating aspect of this off season, where things where they proved me wrong, and they haven't proven me wrong yet with this one. And I hope they do. I hope Ebukam comes out and gets 10 sacks this weekend. But it's just tough, man. So I would like to see JT Tuimoloau out there this weekend, but we'll see. They're kind of slow playing it. You could kind of tell in the preseason when he was out there late into preseason games that this year's more about development with him. And we look at how the Colts are approaching this season. I mean, look at how many veterans are playing on defense. They're all about the high floor, the win now, guys who maybe physically they're not at where they need to be, but they're not going to make many mistakes. So we're going to just hold teams down and get those turnovers and stuff. So I get the approach on defense, as many veterans as possible. And then JT will maybe be good by the second half of this year or early next year. But it is frustrating when a second round pick's not getting action out there. But this is a win now Colts team. So they're not slowing down to let guys develop. They're pushing those chips in and going for it this year. So I kind of get it from that aspect as well.
Yeah, especially when the second round pick plays a position that is not really producing. Once again, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. Follow him on X at Zach Hicks 2. He is also an excellent writer, and he's got a really nice YouTube channel as well. Last thing for you, who do you think plays nickelback this week? And if you have any opinion on Mike Hilton, the guy that the Colts just signed to the practice squad, I think. What are kind of your thoughts on him?
Yeah, Hilton certainly has lost a step over the last couple of years, but in his prime, I mean, him and Kenny Moore were arguably the top 2 slot corners in football for a couple of years there. Just 2 outstanding guys. So for a guy like Hilton, you're bringing him in here because he knows the system, knows Luanarumo. You're going to ramp him up to speed. I'm assuming he'll get the call up this week. I don't know if he'll get the majority of the snaps in the slot. I think Blackman will. Blackman played a lot of slots this offseason with the Vikings. He's clearly the team's 3rd corner just in general, and I think they like him enough to where they're just going to get him on the field that way. But I think Hilton will get a couple snaps out there, and maybe by week 5, week 6, if Kenny's still out, then we'll see Hilton get more snaps in the slot. But I'd expect it to be Blackman this week in the slot, and then Howard and Ward on the outside. And maybe they might have some mix and matching personnel where they have Blackman back on the outside and Hilton coming in the slot because, again, they do like Blackman quite a bit. But I think Blackman will get the majority of those slot snaps.
Which is good with me. I like Blackman. I feel like when he played against the Broncos, I didn't notice him. And I feel like if you play corner and I don't notice you, that's usually a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than the Xavier Howard of we only notice you right now on the defense. So, yeah, it is easy to ignore the other side when one side is getting those 5 penalties or whatever it was. But, yeah, he's been fine to start the year. I'd like to see him a little stickier in coverage, but he's still getting used to things, and he's been better than what he was in the preseason with the Vikings, so it's hard to really complain too much. I mean, they got him for a 6th-round pick. You're not expecting him to be some superstar. Just don't have major gaffes that hurt the team. And so far, he's avoided that, so you can't really complain too much.
He has, but, I mean, he was a 3rd-round pick. He just tore his ACL, if I remember correctly. So we'll see. look, I'm hopeful. Like last year, if they had to play the Rams, I'd have been like, well, this is a loss. They're not winning this one. But this year, it feels like they've got a real chance to go in and beat just about anybody. Zach, thank you for your time. As always, you always give us a lot of it. So I really appreciate it. What all do you have going on just on the YouTube, writing, and over on Locked On Colts?
Oh man, I got some nerdy things this week. I think just this is why I like have my own YouTube channel. I can just do whatever subjects I want, and you guys will gobble it up. You guys love it so much out there, whatever random thing I write about or do. So I'm thinking I'm going to have like a video on like Mo Alley Cox this year and how he's kind of found the role that fits him better because of Tyler Warren. A little bit into where the offense has succeeded with like certain personnel groups. I have a Grover Stewart piece posting today, so ton of stuff coming. Just follow me there on socials, the Zach Hicks too, and check out the YouTube and the writing there.
Okay, we can absolutely do that. Zach, thanks, man.
Cool. Thanks, buddy.
That is Zach Hicks. Once again, go follow him on X at Zach Hicks2 to kind of keep up with everything he's got going on. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, the Colts keep on rolling. They are a legitimately good football team, and I've got more thoughts on why they're as good as they are.
Dan Dockage at noon. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Now, this is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X, __ Jonathan Smith, to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM, no matter how you're listening. It's greatly appreciated. I know that there's many different places where you can get people talking about the Colts, so thank you for choosing the Real Jonathan Smith Show. The Colts are good, 3-0 for the first time since 2009. That's Peyton Manning and that amazing team that started 14-0, if I remember correctly, 15-0 maybe. I don't fully remember. That's a bummer. Anyway, they're good. The Colts are, I don't know if they're great. Okay, like I don't think they're as good as the Bills. I don't think they're as good as the Chargers. I know the Ravens and the Chiefs are both 1-2, but I'm not convinced that they're quite to those teams' levels yet. Okay, now maybe they get there. If they beat the Rams on Sunday on the road, I will gladly reconsider my position on that, because that is new and valuable information, right? You can go to LA and pick up a win. And a large part of why the Colts are as good as they are is Shane Steichen. Now, Shane Steichen is not perfect, but he's still a good head coach. You can have the best weapons in the world and a great offensive line and a good quarterback and good personnel on defense, but if your coach sucks, it's not going to matter. That is one of the differences between college football and the NFL. You could go hire me at Ohio State, and we would win 10 games a year because Ohio State has a bunch of money that they can just go buy whatever player they want. And after they do that, they show up, and then they just play teams that are simply inferior to who they are. The NFL does not work that way. It does not work that way. Okay, you could argue that the Lions had the best roster in the NFL last year, and they didn't win a playoff game. Coaching matters. The Chargers were terrible under Brandon Staley, and they had Justin freaking Herbert. And then John Harbaugh shows up, and they start winning games, and Justin Herbert has a really good year last year, and with very similar personnel, the Chargers were all of a sudden good. All they did was change the head coach. Okay, Shane Steichen is a good coach, right? He's not a great one. Okay, he's not Kyle Shanahan. He's not Andy Reid. He's not those guys, right? The end of the game, clock management against the Broncos in week 2 was bad. Okay, I was on it immediately. The poorly timed trick plays last year were some of the most just like, what in the world are we doing moments I've had in my football watching life. Now, I'm just going to sound like I'm cutting Shane Steichen a bit of a break here, but you go back to last year, there's a part of me that just wonders, did he just have so little faith in Anthony Richardson that he felt like he had to call a trick play in big spots? I don't know. Just a thought. With that being said, Justin Herbert, the best year of his career pre-Jim Harbaugh, came under Shane Steichen. Jalen Hurts, his best year came under Shane Steichen. He really emerged under Steichen and this offense when he was the offensive coordinator in Philly. And then he leaves the Eagles. I don't remember who the Eagles hired to replace him, but he leaves. They fall off a cliff. They fire that guy, and then they hire Kellen Moore, and then everything is fine and dandy again. Okay, that is what happened in Philly. And then he comes to Indianapolis, and the Colts give him not one, not two, but 3 different backup quarterbacks to kind of rotate through as his starter. His first year, he's got Gardner Minshew, who couldn't beat out Aiden O'Connell last year in Vegas. And then last year, it's Anthony Richardson, who's now backing up Daniel Jones, and Joe Flacco, who would be a backup on 30 of 32 NFL teams. He just so happens to play for the Browns. The other team he would start for, probably the Saints. Everywhere else, though, he's a backup. And Shane Steichen now has a guy in Daniel Jones who just looks like a starting quarterback. Making checks at the line, getting them into the right play, calling the right protection, delivering the football on time and on targets. And when Shane Steichen schemes up a deep ball, he throws it where it's supposed to go. And all of a sudden, the Colts are 3-0. Reminder, he went 500 with those three backup quarterbacks and a defense that never ranked higher than 28th in the NFL in total defense. Shout out Gus Bradley. If you can go 500 in that situation, then you're definitely not a bad coach. I don't know if you're a great one, but you're certainly not a bad one. And this year, things are just finally starting to line up for him. Right? You've got, a quarterback who can just run the offense. Right? Like that's a very important thing. Right? You have, weapons on the outside that are actually making plays. Last year they had to throw the ball to A.D. Mitchell a bunch, and he just wasn't physical enough, wasn't tough enough, or whatever, you kind of want to say about it. But, that hasn't been an issue this year, right? Like it hasn't been. That's the reality of it. So, that's really going well. They're running the football. The offensive line is playing really well, and they're staying healthy. And now that things are lining up, all of a sudden the Colts are winning football games. And the biggest thing, though, or the two biggest things, is one, he's not asking Daniel Jones to do anything that he can't do. Right? Like he's not like, hey, Daniel, we're taking 7 deep shots a game like we did last year with Anthony Richardson. That wouldn't go well because, Daniel Jones has done a good job converting those longer passes. Like, that's not his strength. So it's more of an occasional thing. Hey, I think Shane Steichen's doing a really good job of leaning on the offensive line. Okay, he's making sure that Jonathan Taylor is getting the touches that he needs. He had 20 on Sunday in a blowout against the Titans. He had 21 in the blowout win against the Dolphins. And in the one game where they needed him so far against the Broncos, 28 touches between receptions and carries. That's good coaching. That's good play calling, making sure that your best player has the football that often. His impact on Daniel Jones can't be understated because Daniel Jones looked like a mess in New York before he got to Indianapolis. Okay? Like, that's the reality of it right now. Shane Steichen has done a very nice job helping elevate Daniel Jones. And obviously, everyone else around Daniel Jones has helped him out as well. The receivers are making plays. The offensive line is blocking. And this is an aspect of coaching in general that I think people miss. When we think about offensive coaches, we immediately go to the coach and the quarterback. What does this coach do for the quarterback? And that's obviously very important because quarterback is the most important position in the NFL. And if you're not good at quarterback, you're not going to win games. Here's a tweet that I saw last night from Scott Quessenberry, who played center under Shane Steichen for the Chargers. Scott Quessenberry said, Shane Steichen had the best feel for the game of any coach I'd ever been around. Paired with the ability to scheme up runs during the week, makes him lethal at all points during the game. And this is why the Colts are good. They can run the football. We are so enamored with quarterbacks in the NFL, and rightfully so, because if you don't have a good one, then you're not going to win. And if you have a good one, then you can beat anybody. But let's go back to last year. The best teams in the NFL were dominant running the football. Baltimore led the league in rushing last year. Really good football team. Philadelphia won the Super Bowl, second in the NFL in rushing. The Lions went 15-2. They were third in the NFL in rushing. The Washington Commanders played in the NFC Championship game, fourth in the NFL in rushing. Tampa Bay won their division, fifth in the NFL in rushing. Green Bay made the playoffs last year, sixth in the NFL in rushing. Buffalo played in the AFC Championship game, ninth in the NFL in rushing. Pittsburgh made the playoffs last year, 12th in the NFL in rushing. Do you see the theme? There's one team that had success last year in the playoffs that didn't run the football well. It was the Kansas City Chiefs. They were 26th in the NFL in rushing last year. But they have Patrick freaking Mahomes. So it didn't matter how well or how poorly they ran the football. And that is something that has been a pretty steady thing under Shane Steichen here in Indianapolis. Last year, they were 8th in the NFL in rushing, right? Despite having a quarterback that everyone knew couldn't throw the football, they were still 8th in rushing. 2 years ago, Shane Steichen's first year in Indy, the Colts were 10th in the NFL in rushing. In 2023, Jonathan Taylor missed a fairly decent amount of time in those games. And then to start the season, the Colts are third in the NFL in rushing, only behind Buffalo, who's 3-0, and the Washington Commanders, who are 2-1 and won a game without Jaden Daniels as their starting quarterback. So just that is such an underrated part of Shane Steichen and really just the NFL in general, right? Like if you want to find the common denominator of every team that makes the playoffs and consistently wins football games, it is the ability to run the football because it elevates every other part of your team. It makes life easier on your starting quarterback. It makes life easier on your defense, right? Because when you run the football, you can control the clock. They're off the field. They can rest. That was part of the issue with the Colts last year. They were just, the defense was on the field way too much. That's not a problem this year because the Colts can run the football consistently and they can also complete passes. So Shane Steichen, as I said, not perfect in any way, shape, or form. Okay, the clock management stuff has been spotty. The clock management has been spotty. Calling trick plays in bad spots. Having Jonathan Taylor off the field on the biggest play of the game in 2023. Like you can just kind of keep working through it. Like there have been issues with Shane Steichen. With that being said, he's in year 3. Hopefully the situation at the end of the game against the Broncos is, the ending of that. And he kind of gets it figured out from there. So Shane Steichen it cannot be understated how important he's been to the Colts this season. That's going to do it here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to tune into the show, no matter how you tuned in, whether that was YouTube, Indy, Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you watched on X, _ Jonathan Smith, to follow me there and watch the show there. And of course, the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. Thank you again for listening to the show today, no matter how you did. The Danny Dockett Show comes your way next. Armando Salguero at 1 to talk Daniel Jones, and then Eddie White to talk about the Fever at 2:30. I believe that they play tonight. I'm not really sure, right? They have an opportunity to take a commanding 2-0 lead over the Las Vegas Aces in the semifinals of the WNBA. Yep, that game is tonight at 9:30. Thank you again for tuning in. I'll talk to you tomorrow starting at 10 a.m.